everybody. It's good to see you all out here. It's a good turnout for this time in our lives. I'm excited to be in person right now. And glad you guys all came out to invest in this time. I've done a lot of civic projects, and this moment is always very exciting, but also very emotional and very fraught. This is a big investment that a city needs to make. It oftentimes happens at this phase in a timeline that Ken just laid out, where the existing facilities often weren't purpose-built for what they're doing and were built a good solid 70 years before, and things start to get real forced on the city. For instance, the rec center that was so beloved needed to come down because of safety issues. It was a decision that was hard to not make in terms of safety of the citizens. So this starts to happen. The infrastructure is decaying, and it's time to do something. Oh yes. Oh, this. Okay, got it. Sorry. Should I just take this thing off?
No, that's just picking up on the camera, but you can still use it.
Okay, I will. Sorry. Makes you guys not that tall. But what I wanted to stress right now is that cities have a lot of investment to make in all their infrastructure, roads and schools and all the things that cities do. This is an investment in the social infrastructure of the city. And we're contemplating what we're going to show you.
It's not coming through the mic.
Yeah,
It's not?
You can just have it for me, Mike, and see if that's working.
That's not on.
We came unplugged.
Oh, that's.
I apologize.
Sorry, Ken.
Try that.
There we go. Okay. Oh, good. So what I want to show you today is a project that's thought through to last another 70, even 100 years. This is an investment you're making not for the next 25. It's a big investment, and it needs to work for many different iterations of how this city sees itself becoming over the many years. So what we're looking at is a relationship between spaces that can be many things at different times of the year, different seasons, different times of the day, and for many, many decades to come. So those are the things I want to really stress tonight when I take you through this. So I hope you've had a chance to see the site plan over the time we've been working on it. And if not, there's a really good image of it out in the hallway that you can stand and look at for a long time. Let's see, the pointer doesn't work from that distance on the screen, but to get oriented, west is up on the screen, north is to the right, and you can see Main Road out there, and a part of the parking turnaround is still there in the image that's there now. I'm going to step away from the mic for a minute to show you. That's the big tree that's out there right now, right in front of where the old rec center used to be, which we think is an important tree, and we would really like to keep it in the plan. So just behind that is where we're contemplating the new recreation building, a similar space to where it is now, but with its sort of east side as a real solid wall that won't put a lot of noise toward the neighbors. We're trying to pull all the noise and activity into the middle of the site to respect the neighbors and keep it where it is in the middle of the park. So that side of the basketball court would be a nice solid wall that might let some daylight in up high, but would keep the acoustics really well down. We're also looking at a really flexible play field just to the south of City Hall. And then City Hall has several spaces that are part of the public program adjacent to that park. There's the community room and the preschool that open right out onto that park. That's these spaces right here. And you'll see when I get to the pictures of it in a minute how that kind of works. There's big doors there that can open. But those spaces need to be very flexible for many, many years. So we're sizing them in a way that they can be many things. Right now, we're contemplating a community room, which is a flexible room in and of itself. And then the preschool would work really well there, but it could also be other things over time. We're trying to make it so those two rooms open onto each other as well. So you could have one big event, like say a big art walkthrough that links together many of these rooms for one event. They also open out into the lobby space right here. There'll be large doors there for overflow. So if there's an event in the community room that's bigger than that room, you can open the doors and with microphones expand out into the lobby. Same as in the council chambers town hall. We like to call, that's this room. That room, I'll show you some analysis of its size compared to the size of this room and some other similar projects we've worked on, so you can kind of get a sense of the size of it. The town hall room, we like to call it town hall because it should do much more than just city council meetings. City council meetings happen only occasionally. This room should be used, just like this one is, used over and over and over again throughout the day, throughout the night, for as many things as you can functionally take. So it's got to be a very flexible room with different acoustical properties to it for different types of even musical performances. We have in these a lot, if that's what the city desires. So it's not just a big raised dais for a big pomp and circumstance council meeting. It's a space that the council can be not in the way of a larger agenda. And that room also can open out into that lobby. So in the winter, if there's an overflow event, you could have the community room, the lobby, and town hall all linked together for one big indoor event. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about for the relationship and adjacencies and openings that allow rooms to work together. And then the rest of that city hall is the city offices and police offices with support spaces. And those are near police parking, so that the police have great access in and out without running through the main public entrance. So we've added another curb cut out there to let the police go in and out from that side and keep them, not having to cross over where the public is parking and walking as much as the current situation. And then between those two buildings, the recreation building and the city hall building, there's a big, the axis that you have now that you walk along with trees, that's the same axis that you see right here. And there are those big trees that exist out there. So that has a covered breezeway from the entrance to City Hall to the entrance to the rec center. So you can cross there on a rainy day, but you also pass underneath it. So what that does is allows soccer games on the weekends. People can walk right through there, don't have to have access to City Hall. That could be all locked off. The rec center could be open when City Hall's locked off. Furthermore, you could have a portion of City Hall open and city offices locked off like you have right now. So you'd be able to come in through that breezeway without any impediment, any time of day, 24/7, and then into the rec building and into the lobby of City Hall at times when city staff is not working. So for evening events, you can come right into that lobby. You could open into town hall, open into the community room. You could have a door locked there so people can't go back toward the police. Stop. There's some restrooms right here. They could stop just past the restroom. So you can open that whole lobby up. We have it contemplated for fire exits and everything so that they work when part of the building's open at night and part of it's closed off. So there you get a little bit more of a, not a 24-hour cycle, but much closer to day through night use. And then we have an outdoor basketball court up to the east over there. There's a playground that's probably relocating some of the equipment you have now in the playground further back, right adjacent to the play field. It's this blue area here. And then a seating area where you can see down into the existing fields, onto the new field, and see kids in the playground. We also have contemplated that parents dropping off their kids for preschool could have multiple entrances. You could come through the City Hall lobby, but if that gets to be too, noisy and chaotic, there can be an entrance around the other side, right there, for parents to drop off and have seating there where they can talk and catch up and network about, childcare and play dates and all that stuff. And then sit out on the south-facing porch. So that whole porch area is the sunniest spot on the whole site. We oriented that to the south on purpose so that all day long it had the most solar access. It looks out over the playfield. So as kids come out of the preschool to go out on the playfield, parents and teachers can sit up on that deck out there, that patio, and look out over all of that and observe them, make sure they're safe. That also puts a lot of eyes on the playfield so that, less things can happen back there that we don't want to happen. There's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of action, and so it's less likely that something else will happen. Plus, the police are right there too. So this is our image of what it could be. And this is really, really early on. We pretty much just stepped out of master planning into concept design. So we haven't worked out every door handle and every screw and every piece of wood on this thing, but the idea is there so we could price it. And so this is a depiction of, about how it could feel. So a couple things to note. We're trying to make this thing a real, almost residential scale feeling building. Not so grand, not a big Taj Mahal, but has a real human scale to it. There are some of the rooms, like Town Hall, that has a little bit higher ceiling height for larger events. There's a good aspect ratio for a larger room. If the ceiling's too low, the acoustics aren't right. So in the larger footprint rooms, the ceiling's a little bit higher, but it's still not grandiose or overly expensive. There are some key windows toward the south that look out over the park, and so connect those interior spaces to the exterior with big, large doors that can open. On nice days, you could open that room right to the outside. And there's a covered canopy over that whole porch so that even if it's raining, you could still go outside, which is a great way to live in the Northwest. It's not often frigid, but it might be wet. So we can still kind of open up and expand out into that space, even in the shoulder seasons, we call them, when it's not too chilly out. You can kind of see the covered walkway between the two. All this is contemplated as wood construction primarily, with some anchor walls that we're contemplating in maybe stone. So those come right up out of the ground and anchor the building, but the main frame is wood, because wood's the least expensive building material for a building this size. It opens it up to more contractors being able to bid on it. And it's a warm kind of northwest feel. And it's a lot of the residences in Normandy Park have that sort of expressed wood structure. So we want to celebrate that wood as much as we can. Because of the size of this building, it's not a gigantic building. The fire code allows us to use wood and expose that wood and not have to protect it other than with fire sprinklers. So fire sprinklers take care of the fire code on this, and it's a totally safe building then. This is another look down that back porch. Kind of looks more out over the playfield. You can see how we're contemplating the back porch being lifted a couple steps above the playfield, so you can kind of see out over the whole thing. We think this is the kind of place, I'll show you some examples coming up of other projects where people can come gather even if they don't have any business at the city. You don't have to have any reason to come to City Hall to be at City Hall and the rec center and utilize it. Saturday afternoon when City Hall's closed down, you can come and sit out here, use the play field. It's for many, many different people and agendas who don't have anything to do with going to a council meeting or anything like that. We're saving those big trees, the ones that are still there. Those are worked into the plan so that they don't need to be cut down. And you can see the big deep overhangs that allow for the covered outdoor area. This is a view from what's now the turn-in parking, looking south. So what you'd first see when you arrive by car or by foot on the sidewalk or by bike, from that northern edge of the site looking south. So you'd come in, there's that axis I showed you earlier. It's kind of the same place you walk up right now, similarly. Right now, just to the right where the guy with the dog is, that would be about where the playground is now. So that's Town Hall. We always like to put Town Hall kind of up in the front. It's always the nicest room. It's kind of like the living room. And so we put it up front. It's where we want everyone to be able to see the most transparency into, government in action and activities in action, and put the city offices more modestly under lower roof and less cost per square foot back behind that to kind of support it. So we put Town Hall right up front. That's the focus. And then on the other side, on the east side, is the recreation center. And that has a nice anchor wall there, which kind of indicates, move on up to that covered breezeway, and that's where you're going to enter both buildings. So it's kind of signaling to people where to go, where to circulate, or just keep walking right through there and you get back to the ball fields. The tree on the right is not one of the existing trees. That's one we think we try to plant a nice northwest garden in front of that building, kind of protect it, probably even bring in some boulders, which we call bollard boulders. So protect the building from, trucks hitting it or anything like that. Like, it's a good way to anchor that building, make it look like it's got a natural setting, but also protect it. Instead of putting a bunch of these metal bollards out there that make it look really governmental, you can put some real rocks out there and protect the building that way. So that's some of what we're kind of showing in that zone, potentially. And it's got a nice, gentle, accessible slope up to the top. It's just a little bit of a little minor rise. So you kind of feel like you're coming on up to that civic space. Kind of like the old civic buildings had those big grand staircases. This is a subtle sort of slight rise. You're not going down into a hole. You're kind of coming up to this higher civic plane. And that's how we reconcile the grade of the parking lot with the park beyond. It'll be subtle. It'll be hard to notice, but if you put a marble up on top, it'll roll back down toward you there. So now I was going to show you a few other projects of similar scale that we've worked on to give you a sense of some similar size spaces. This is one we recently completed. Different climate. This is Del Mar, California. But that's a similar population size there. And they wanted their civic center to be very residential in scale and have a really human scale and have a lot of flexibility. So we did a whole, I don't know if any of you were around for the yellow tag thing. We kind of made it up on this one where people were allowed to come along at any time and write comments that we'd want to hear. What are some things you want to do at Civic Center? How do you use Civic Center? What do you think the design team should watch out for? Questions like that. People who can't make it in the evening, they have kids or their jobs might be at different times. They could come and make comments, and we harvest all those and we listen to them, and it gives us a broader range of kind of how that community wants to use this space. There's big outreach on Del Mar like there was here. This was pre-COVID, so it was a little easier to do a lot more town halls. But we wound up learning a lot from this community. They wanted to use their council chambers for fundraising events, musical events, dances. They have a lot of community clubs like you guys do that want to have space to meet without having to rent it. And so there's a whole range of meeting room sizes adjacent to Town Hall, and then Town Hall was able to be divided, which I've heard they don't use that much. They mostly either go to a small room or the big room. So this is a comparison. Boy, it's hard to read. I thought this, I didn't contemplate how small it was going to be, sorry. But on the right, on each one of these, I'm analyzing like 3 different places. On the right is our project. This is Normandy Park on the right. So you can see Town Hall there, and you can see the breezeway. And then on the left, at the same scale, is Del Mar City Hall. So the big room on Del Mar is their town hall, which is roughly the same size as ours. So they have a TV studio behind theirs, And we have contemplated some support space, like for council and storage behind that. Otherwise, the room is very similar in size. I'm going to show you a picture of how it looks and how it feels. This one, yeah, okay. The one we're designing is 48 by 35. This room is, I just pasted off, it's 28 by 45. So the room we're contemplating here is similar in length up to that support space, that gray box, but about 6 or 7 feet wider. And then the ceiling's a little bit higher, so the acoustics are a little bit better for events. We also want to have, like I pointed out, positive outdoor spaces right next to those big rooms. So this was a big event they had. I happened to be there. Everyone can sit outside, and you know, if we have a nice day here, everyone can sit outside in that south porch, have the community room and the preschool room open, and right on through to the lobby. And so these kind of events don't always have to be inside. They can be right adjacent to the building. So we're thinking about the exterior spaces and their relationship to the interior spaces. So there's a whole bunch of uses and things we haven't even thought of yet that can happen there. And that's where you can really pack a lot of people in for an event and get the PA out there and really, you know, have a big rally of some kind. So here's inside that room. This was a photograph we took, which isn't very good for, it's not a professional photograph. It was just an event. But you can kind of see about how it feels, about how that ceiling height sort of looks, and how, you know, the wood's really expressed in there. That's the kind of character. It's not the exact same room, but it's similar in size, similar in scale, has, you know, a similar amount of glass in it maybe that would look out onto those trees. So when you're sitting in meeting in that room, you'd be looking out some of these clerestory windows that are up high like that, and see into the trees. So we're making a big deal out of that. Down low, it's mostly solid. So, you know, you don't get too much sunlight in the room, and you can have, you know, blackout events if you need to, but a lot of it's like lifting that roof up and seeing outside. Then adjacent that room, this is kind of like, this is a California version of the lobby we're contemplating for this project. So it's called the breezeway in this building. The yellow spaces on the left, this is a few different versions. So you can see the room I just showed you a second ago is on the far left. That yellow space is that room. And then if they want to expand, they can open up this big glass door and expand out into this breezeway. So most of the time that's a shady, calm space. It's open all day long, and residents just come in and hang out and talk. They don't have to have city business. They can walk through there. It can lock off at night. It's got public restrooms facing it. It also has meeting rooms on both sides. There's the big meeting room you can see, the big town hall. And to the right of the camera, which is the other side over here, there are smaller meeting rooms, and those all can open out onto that breezeway. So in California, you want shade. In Seattle, we want protected indoor space for our spill out space. So our lobby has a similar function to this space, where the town hall can have a big interior door to overflow out into the lobby. There's a big kind of fundraiser event, I think, going on in that space in between the two buildings, which is similar in size to the lobby we're talking about here. This building doesn't have any of the character that Normandy Park would want architecturally. This Bothell City Hall, bigger building. It was a what was that, a 40,000 square foot building, 60,000 square foot building. It was a pretty much bigger building and made out of concrete, which I think is far too harsh for this place, and I think even for that place. But we, you know, anyway, it's a long story. But this building has some similar functions as Normandy Park. So there we are on the right. There's our exterior breezeway and our interior lobby. And then at the same scale, that kind of lozenge-shaped room is their town hall, city hall, which I'll show you an image of, our city council, which I'll show you an image of in a minute. And that kind of opens out to a space adjacent to it that's similar in size to our lobby. So this room is, I don't think it has quite the character we want in Normandy Park. It looks a little bit clinical, you know. They didn't want the expressed wood there. They wanted it to be kind of a little more like this. It's a highly functional ceiling, but I personally don't think I don't like how this turned out so much compared to what we're doing here. But this room is hyper multifunctional. So council's pushed away to one side, so they're not in the way of anything else happening. So they have all sorts of different events. This is a typical city council meeting I took a picture of one day. But it's a similar sized room. It just doesn't have the same architectural character. And then that opens up this door. They didn't want big, giant sliding doors, which I'm going to show you in a minute in a different city hall. They wanted a smaller door to kind of control access a little more to that room. I'd recommend a bigger door than that for opening town hall out into the lobby for this one, but that's something we can talk about, later on. That opens onto this space, which is kind of where most of their city business happens, but it's also a place that they can clear those chairs out and have overflow. So they have large events that go from town hall into a large meeting room next to town hall and then into this room, and it's all open onto each other. So you can have far more than the capacity of town hall in one big event, all inside. And there's a nice bustle about it when it happens. So they use that space. That's why all that furniture is movable. And again, pretty concrete, not Normandy Park at all, but the function is what I'm trying to show you. Little small conference rooms that the city staff can come out and meet the public on their own terms. So we like to give the city staff the ability to, choose when they come out to meet people because of safety issues and getting work done, but make really great places for them to meet. And they can also invite people back, but most cities are zoned that way. They don't, you can't just walk right into the back of the city staff and interrupt them. But we want to make these really friendly places where you can meet city staff and have conference rooms that are sized for small meetings right in the front lobby. Okay, this is a city called Edgewood. It's kind of down near Federal Way. They had a much more rural feel there. This was a kind of a farm that was turned into their civic center. It's not an old barn reclaimed. Some of there is a barn on the site next to it that was retained, and then an old shed we used some of the wood on, but it was literally a farm, and they put their civic center on. So it's got kind of an agricultural feel to it, but we try to make the entrance at the top nice and civic and flat, but then it kind of opens up down the hill. Anyway, comparing their space, their town hall is a little bit smaller. It's sort of a smaller, narrower space. Although if you count where council is, it's similar in size. And then it opens out with a big sliding door that just completely telescopes back. So they can open that entire room out to a 23-foot by 40-foot space, which is slightly smaller than what we're talking about for Normandy Park, but really similar in size. And then that kind of wraps up. This is back to the same site plan. So as we take questions, you can tell me which one you want to talk about if you want to talk about architecture or the way the place works. Yeah, that's all. We can open it up to questions now.
Well, I think just to, again, just so we can answer any questions, because again, if you have any questions, make note of them, and we'll finish up with the bond discussion, and then we'll get to all the questions.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So we're not going to deal with the architect, just questions to the architect?
No, we're going to deal with all the questions after the presentation. So yeah, we're going to kind of take a team approach and answer the questions. So just if you don't mind, write them down and save them, and we'll definitely let Mike answer questions about the design. So with that, the other thing we want to, of course, talk to you about, because it's a big part of, I'm sure, the decision you want to make for the vote, is knowing more about the cost and the revenue streams, and ultimately the bond. So the project that's been explained by Mike, with great job, thank you.
Thanks.
The estimated cost for this entire project is $25 million. Just so you know, that number comes from a consultant that we hired through Miller Hull JB consultants, and they took a look at the program space and the work that we want to get done, and they came up with a construction cost. So the 25 million is not full construction. The 25 million considers the construction cost, and then also what we call here at City Hall the soft dollar cost, which is design, permitting, furnishing, any other type expenditures. But construction cost, I believe, is $17 to $19 million based on the current plan. Now, one thing that was really helpful with the consultant that we hired, we did complete that in August 2021, and we did ask for escalators to be considered as well. That we knew that construction necessarily wouldn't start right then, and as we all know, unfortunately, each year costs tend to adjust and potentially go up. So the consultant helped us out and created escalators that helped us keep up with the current market, so we knew we would have the funding that was needed. So just to let you know, we have, since not even a year has gone by, but we knew with the timing of a vote, design and actual starting the bidding of the project, the first escalator has already been instituted and seen in this number. The current market, we've been keeping an eye on, and we're still hopeful that we'll stay within that budget. But we are doing all we can to keep in line with this $25 million project cost. So with that, we'd like to talk to you about how are we going to pay for that $25 million. This is a plan that was developed with the help of the Capital Committee, which Ken mentioned earlier, and ultimately approved by the City Council. We've created a variety revenue stream plan to help fund the project. First one, private donations. We are committed to working with the community, residents, and corporate donors to go out, get support, and get private donations to help fund a portion of this project. The work that's being done on this is led by a capital campaign committee of city council members. They've started work. We do have some commitments. It's still very low at this point, but they have a great plan, are confident that the $5 million is something that we will be able to accomplish to help make this project a reality. The next item that's listed are city funds. We have REIT, which is the real estate excise tax, which we collect every year, and it is specific uses that we can use this. It's just not revenue we can use for anything. And basically, capital funds, improvements are something we can use, and it was determined by the City Council a while back that we're going to use a portion of our REIT funds. The other opportunity we have that we're taking advantage of, as you all have heard with COVID, the federal government offered ARPA funds for everyone to help recovery. And luckily, due to work from various city-supported organizations, the federal government opened up the uses that we could use it for general fund operations, which really in turn creates cost savings that we're going to funnel towards this project if we move forward. So that's another $3 million. Grants, we're looking to collect $2 million. And just to be completely transparent and honest, we have not secured any grants. We have applied for a couple and not been awarded. It's very competitive, but we are very optimistic. A few of the council members and myself met with Representative Orwell about some grant funding, and she was very supportive of the project. And what the message we received is if we are successful in the bond effort and some of these other revenue streams, that there is a good likelihood, I would say, that we could get some money through the state, as I think she called it, was the icing on the cake. So we're still committed to get the $2 million. And the largest portion of our funding is a voter approved bond. This $15 million represents 60% of the funding and is critical in making this project a reality. And again, this is why I think we're all here tonight to learn more about that. So when it comes to the voter approved bond, I want to talk a little bit about that and what that is going to mean to you and your household and your family. So with the come to the bond, what we're looking at is a maximum of $15 million. We're moving forward with this bond measure based on an ordinance approved by the city council. So one thing I just want to touch base on, we are not able to exceed 15 million. Now, we don't have to take the full 15 million. If we're able to get a great low bid or capital campaign raises, $6 million instead of $5 million, we can lower that 15 million. It's not a definite, it's just a cap. The other cap that our ordinance created when the council approved the bond was the term of the bond. Again, same thing with the 15 million. We cannot go past a 25-year term on the bond. Now, again, we can go less if circumstances are created that works for us. But again, the 15 million for 25 years are the maximum we can go. Now, regarding the bond, if it's approved by the voters, just to be straightforward, as you can see from this wording, is it would basically create an additional property tax on all properties within Normandy Park. And so a bond would be issued sort of similar to your mortgage, where there would be a set debt service the city would be required to pay back every year. And we would take all the assessed value, which would create a special levy rate, which would go on all the tax bills that would be collected to pay that annual debt service. Based on the current market, we do have a great team helping us, bond counsel and an underwriter. The rate that we're looking at is, as approved based on the market today, is the 0.508, 50 cents basically per $1,000 of assessed valuation on your property. Couple things I just want to stress. Sure, most of you know this, but again, when you think of the value, do not think of your market value, what you'll see on Redfin or Zillow. Think of your assessed value. That is something that you can get from the tax assessor's website, which is really helpful. And typically, that's a different amount. For example, the latest and greatest information that we have from the tax assessor is that the median value home or property in Normandy Park is $755,000. Of course, if you watch some of the postings in the real estate market, you can see that's not what you see as list price. Because again, that's an example of a difference between the market value and the assessed value. So if you had a median value home with the current estimate and the markets going on, you would pay $384 additional taxes per year, or $32 per month. And to help everybody make the math a little bit easier, we have a chart that we created looking at a $500,000 home, $750,000 home, and then the $1 million assessed value home. One question I heard, I'll just mention now, is somebody asked, right now we're living in some very interesting times. Markets are shifting, supply chain, different demands. Interest rates are, of course, going up. We've been in close contact with the bond underwriter. In fact, Finance Director Brenda Wolf, earlier today, reached out to the bond underwriter, not the council, and just verified that our 0.508 per thousand was still a good number based on the market. And he confirmed, yes, that's still a good number. And part of that goes into when we started this amount, we want to be conservative. We wanted to create a little bit of, being conservative, a little bit of leeway that we can move within, knowing that the market isn't always exact. And so what's really happened is that gap, that give we had, has shortened a little bit. So if, depending on what the market happens, where things go, this will change, but these are still good numbers to give you an idea that if the bond was passed, this is what you would see on your personal property or your property. And that was a quick summary of the bond, which y'all may have more questions on. So we've created just some basic questions that we've heard quite a bit. So again, please write down any of your questions, anything you heard about tonight, or anything that maybe we haven't addressed or something you heard. We've got a good 40 minutes here to answer all your questions. If we need to go a little bit over, we can do that too. And I think Brooks is collecting the questions, so we can bring them
answer
forward.
those just to start? Can you
Yeah,
just
we'll
go through
start
those
with
and
these,
answer those?
perfect, yeah. So again, I just want to stress, I think there was some information we heard that the bond could be increased. And just want to let you know, as we talked about, there's an ordinance which governs the bond and what we can do as a city. If the voters approve it, it would not exceed $15 million in value. It would not exceed a 25-year term. If we can, we're definitely going to go for lesser of both those amounts, but that would be our max.
Anybody need any of these?
Any more green cards? Anybody like some?
Just one question on each card?
No, you can
Oh,
put
okay.
multiple questions, yeah. This is something I heard at our first town hall meeting is, well, I'm concerned that, especially with what we're seeing right now, my assessed value is going to double. And that means that this special levy will double as well. So let's just say for easy math, I have $1 million home. And within 7 years, it's now $2 million. So now I'm going to have to pay $1,000 a month extra. And that, I want to make sure, I don't want to pick the wrong word here. And that luckily will not happen. And as I mentioned, the bond is going to be responsible for paying a specific amount of an annual debt service. So for easy math, let's just say we have to pay $1 million a year back to pay back this bond. As your assessed value goes up, what's going to happen, because the amount that we're paying isn't going to go up, it stays flat. So instead of that 0.508 is your levy, if all the values go up 10%, it will drop to 0.456, for example. So if you have the $1 million assessed value and it goes up 10%, you're still going to be paying approximately $508 a month. A year, excuse me, not a month, sorry, big mistake, a year. One thing I will, just to kind of, government employee, I mean, there could be something positive or negative that could adjust that. I won't guarantee that it's always going to be a constant amount. Let's say the city council's hopes and dreams of a boutique hotel gets built on First Avenue, which is going to be a high assessed value and really have a positive impact on our tax base. You might see that $508 drop to $480. So there could be some fluctuations among your neighbors. It could have an impact, could be positive and negative, but in most cases, that assessed value for the levy that's going to be collected for the bond will be very consistent during the term of the loan. The other thing we just want to talk about is the bond vote does have special requirements. It's not just a simple majority vote of the residents. To get the bond approved, we need a 60% approval of the bond. And it also we have to have a 40% turnout of the last general election. So there are some little bit higher standards that have to be met for this bond to be approved. So if 45% of the voters vote reject, the levy will not pass. The bond will not pass because we will have only hit 55% approval. What happens if the bond fails? I think that's what we've heard quite a bit of too. This one and some other questions you might have, I'll be honest, are going to be hard to necessarily answer definitively because there are issues that the city council has not decided on. But with regard to the bond failing, I feel very confident in saying that the plan that has been presented by Mr. Jobs tonight would not be able to be built. As we talked about, the bond represents 60% of the project, and financially the city could not move forward with the project as presented. Could there be something else the city could do? I mean, possible, but without the bond approval, The donations and grant funding will be challenging, so we'll have to rely mostly on city funds, which reduces it to a $3 million budget. So if anything is done, it will be a very minimal improvement. So I feel, again, not the decision of staff, it's ultimately the decision of city council. Without the bond support, we would not be moving forward with any major project. When will the bond be issued? That is a good question. I would say as long as the financial market looks fairly secure and safe, the bond will be issued just before we're ready to go out to bid for the contract to build a project. That is due to bond. Once it's issued, we have 3 years to expend the money. So we want to hold off as much as we can. But the caveat to that, I would say, is we, of course, if this is approved and we're moving forward, we will keep an eye on the financial market. And if we think there is a benefit of issuing the bond sooner than that, we'll move forward. But as long as the market looks stable and is going to be moving in a positive manner, we would wait till we're ready to go out to bid. And that leads into the project timeline. So even if the voters get the successful vote on August 2nd, we're still looking at a little bit of time before you actually see the ribbon cutting for certain. So looking at the design, talking with Mike, we are looking at a 12-month period for design. And then we'll have to do some bidding. We are required with this size of project, we'll have to go out for competitive bids. And then construction of the project is anywhere from 14 to 16 months. And those timelines are if everything goes great with no problems. And I hate to say it, as you probably all know, construction projects, there's always a little hiccup, a little problem. And in addition, I think the design might take a little bit more time for us too, because the city council is very supportive of public input. So we'll probably want to take a little bit of time to get some input in the beginning. So very optimistic. I would say we can hopefully have ribbon cutting mid-2025. And it could go later depending on circumstances. You know, I've seen projects go great for the design but have problems bidding. Could be a problem developed during construction. But we're going to be optimistic and think 2025, mid-2025. So with that, I think we've got a great stack of
You got quite a
questions.
few.
Awesome.
I think we passed it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So the number of parking spaces seems small. And then what is the head count to vehicle ratio seems tight. So the parking is going to be increased, right, Mike?
Yeah, it's more than there is now.
Yeah.
And we have, should I come up to the microphone so it's on the record? Yeah, we were able to increase the parking some by adding a parking lot over. There are a few more parking spaces over there. And then what you can see is different from what you have right now is the parking lot in the back is now double loaded. Right now, it's not that efficiently laid out. It's not as wide. So you get a whole bunch more cars back there. It's just a lot more efficient parking lot. And yeah, so there are a few more parking spaces than there are now. And that's the most we can fit on the site.
And one thing I think it's with the increased parking is the facility that's proposed isn't significantly bigger than what we have now. It is bigger, but I think about 6,000 square feet. So I think we'll be definitely better off. You know, parking is a challenge, but at least it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, the only other way to increase parking would be to reduce play fields. And we're going to have plenty of bike parking here and all that, so that's the trade-off.
Reduce the size of the building.
Yeah. I mean, mean,
Oh.
you say take from green, but you could take from building.
From the building.
Oh, yeah, that's, yeah,
Green space is pretty important to this community.
right.
A lot more than meeting space for outsiders.
So, and the next question, I guess it was asking about the August 2nd vote, and if this is the best date. And the city council definitely talked about the date, and I think it's a combination of a couple items that we were aware that there were other bond issues that are being presented in November. And then also a big part of it is, as we're all learning, the longer we wait, the more impact, the cost increases, financial markets may not be as beneficial as they are now. And what the council really wanted was to have this kind of, basically this decision made by the residents as soon as possible. Because we basically put things on hold so we could get this issue before the voters and get this vote. So once the decision is made, we will definitely start working on whichever path the voters have given us after August 2nd. So August 2nd, I know it may feel quick, but it was definitely a deliberate discussion. And as Ken talked about, this project has been being discussed for quite a while. So we're excited to get to this point and really get some decisions made.
And there's limited dates, Amy. There's only a few dates to choose from also for the
During the
voter
year.
approved bond election dates. They were very limited.
Right, there's only a few a year, and
Right.
it's also just trying to also make sure, because again, we need to get a ballot where we have that good turnout as
Yeah.
well. The other question we have here is what happens if the city does not meet their share of the fundraising? I would say that it depends. Bottom line, from at least the staff perspective, is we are not able to award any contract till we have our funding secure. So if we are $1 million, $2 million shy, let's say we've only hit $3 million, we cannot sign that contract to move forward with the construction of the building till we have the funding lined up. So if we cannot ever get over that hill, we will either have to get another plan, another path, or not proceed with the project as presented. And again, I will say that is a staff perspective, because again, it goes back to that first thing is we can't commit till our funding is secure. But again, I'll just mention the capital campaign has a great plan. They've started their work and they feel very secure that the support is out there and they will be able to reach their goals. Next question is, what will staff do during construction? How will city business be conducted during construction? Do you want to kick that off, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we go with the 7,000 square foot gym, there are two gym sizes contemplated. This is the larger one in this plan. It actually can be built while this building remains functionally useful. It's right up against it though. It's going to be kind of tough. So we might contemplate phasing this part of construction after the city side is constructed under the same contract, and then begin construction on the rec building right after that, so they can move in. But if we, once we get into the more carefully designed construction documents beyond the concept, we'd be looking at a possibility of keeping this one up and functioning so they can work up until the day they move into their new space. And on the 4,000 square foot gym, that can be done with, one arm tied behind your back, no problem. So that's the hope. And that's also where some of the parking shifts to the space where this building is. And that's why we get a little bit more of an efficient parking layout.
And Mike, this one was for you. Did you say we won't lose any existing trees?
I don't have a plan to cut any of them down for this project. The ones that were deemed unhealthy are already down. So the big major trees that we currently have out there, we're trying to keep all of them.
I think
I think there
we
was one,
circle.
right? Just the one right in the middle of the breezeway. I think there was one oak that was gonna be.
Oh,
Is this drawing to scale?
I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, things, yeah, okay.
So, if this is the big tree out here,
Yeah,
the big toy is right here, right now.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
big trees start right about here. There's one that was cut down right where the big toy is, right next to it here. But the trees, the existing trees, start right about here, not back here. So we'd lose all these trees,
According to that.
according to this drawing.
That's moved up a lot closer.
yeah, we moved up a lot. We're,
Right.
Ken's right, there's one tree that has to come down,
There's
yeah.
one
And that's why I asked why
Big
this,
trees
if
where
this
it
is to
is.
scale, because
I
this
see what
tree
you're
is a landmark.
I see what you mean by scale, yeah.
So either the whole
So
plan
the
is
big
this
toy is
view.
here, if
Okay,
that
I
tree
see.
is there.
Is there not a tree there right now? The tree would be like in that gymnasium on that side, is what you're
Okay,
saying.
so it's not to scale.
I mean, I mean, the drawing was drawn to scale. It's actually stretched on the screen right now. But all
Where's
those,
trees, if that's drawn to scale?
those trees run right in front of this building. And there is one that has to come down, that's true. Yeah.
I think more than one.
And I
Okay.
think the circle driveway, were we gonna lose one? The trees there along
The-
174?
Right, the trees out in the front, the sweet gums, they've all been deemed as near the end of their lifespan, so those will all get replaced, the ones out on the street frontage itself.
But there's definitely a commitment to trees, and we're gonna do all we can to keep all the trees. I know we're planning to, I think, add a few.
Yeah, we're adding,
We wouldn't need to
Quite a
add
few.
If what he said is we're not losing trees. If we're not losing trees, we don't need to add trees. But apparently we'll add trees because we are losing trees.
Well, we've lost a couple trees already due to health.
I've seen that one, right?
Yeah. And Brenda, I might need your help with this one, since you've been talking with the bond underwriter. With regard to bond rates, rates are going up. What bond rate are taxpayers' estimates based on?
3.9% is where the cost would be, the tack on 1% cushion, so 3.9 to 4.9 right now.
And
And the
I-
bonds were going up, but they came back down slightly. So we were at 4.2 and now we're down to 3.9. Which really dropped a lot.
So I guess my question is, all the estimates for what it's going to cost individual property owners, that's based on a 3.9, a 4.1, a 4.2?
Yeah, the 3.9, yeah.
3.9 to 4.9?
That includes all the costs at the present value.
And next question, if 3 million of revenues are used for the Civic Center
Actually,
project,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
There was I think, a follow-up to that second question. I can read my handwriting.
okay, I look like I'm reading. That was number 2?
Yeah, it says rates are going up, what the bond rate estimate's based on. So, I mean, I think everybody knows in 2 weeks, the Fed rate's going to go up 3/4
Yeah,
of a
3
point.
points, yeah.
And there's also basically from Powell statements that they're going to continue going up
Yeah.
through 2022 and 2023.
Right.
So how is that going to affect the estimates of the cost to taxpayers of this project?
Well, because these are not taxable, they're muni bonds, they're not taxable. So it's not going to be, if the Fed raises 3/4, the bonds aren't going to go up 3/4. And I don't know the ratio, but it's far less, far less. So maybe say 40%, that's 3/4. I'm guessing. I don't have the ratio, you can give it to me, but it's not 3/4 if the Fed raises 3/4.
Maybe I don't understand. So
Well,
what you're saying is that with
That's not true. I've been in the municipal
This
business
is
for a
what our
while.
underwriter keeps telling me.
Well, your underwriter, who is your underwriter?
It's
David Tractor
Davidson.
Store?
D.A. Davidson, okay.
Because
D.A.
these are
Davidson.
not taxable, so you're not gonna get as high, if you buy a
Ma'am,
new
I was
bond.
in that business for 40 years, so a lot longer than you were. The point being is the interest rates are going to go higher. There's no question about that. They're going to be probably 2.5% to 3% higher a year and a half from now than they are now. There's no question about that. Powell's already said that. We're going to probably be in a recession. The inflation rate is about 10%. You have to raise rates to compensate for that. I would think that you would see at this point, your rating would probably, what is the rating of your business? What's your rating on your bonds?
AA,
Double A?
yes.
Double A, okay.
I'm gonna grab this
And what
drawing.
do you think your interest rate's going to be what?
And we're going out, I can see I think units about right now.
That's probably reality.
Well, they're building a 1% cushion.
Well, already, Powell's already said, as you said, he's going to jack it up 0.75% next month. You're going to see another 0.75% after that, and you're going to see another 0.75% after that.
And
In order to
that-
curb for inflation, you have to have as much interest rate as you have inflation. You're going to see these rates much higher than you're talking about. The longer you wait on this, the higher the interest rates are going to go.
And I was gonna say, and I think that's one of the reasons
And
why the
that's my
August
next
2nd
question, so there
vote,
you go.
yeah, the August 2nd, went into some of the, I would say the support and catalyst to get the August 2nd vote going. Because we've already seen quite a difference from a year ago. So let me finish up. Okay, $3 million in REIT revenues are used for Civic Center project. They will not be available for other needs, i.e. streets, police department. And that's a good point. And just to let you know, that is something you're definitely balancing, that we don't want to use every single REIT fund for this project. Now, it's a large bit. I won't say that it's not.
I guess that's the question.
Yeah.
So what's the revenues that come in on the real estate excise tax?
About 600,000
Yeah.
a year.
For both quarters. yeah.
600,000 a year. So for 5 years, we're going to use all the REIT or?
No, there's already some that's been set aside, and the ratio is about half and half. So 1.5 in REIT and 1.5 in cost savings in the general fund. So that is something, we have other other needs we don't want to neglect, depending on the, I guess, the market and cost. We might, for a year or two, pull a little bit heavier down from REIT, but that's something that the staff would, of course, present to the city council for consideration. But we're not going to just drain the REIT for years and not do other items, because we don't want to do that, because we're just going to get behind and create a bigger problem for the residents in the city in the future. I think that's fair, Brenda, Ken, am I pretty close?
No, exactly.
Okay.
We don't want to bond off REIT funds, and we don't want to be hindered by, no new paving or sidewalks for the next 25 years, right? I mean, we can't do that, so that's another reason why we're going with the bond vote, is to ensure that we have the capacity to continue with infrastructure improvements going forward.
How did Normandy Park use the previous rec center? And then follow up, what is envisioned for the new rec center? I know over time it's changed. At one time, the city did have a staff member that I think had a little bit more ability to create some programming. My understanding is, unfortunately, it was closed by the time I started, but it was used for special events. There was a basketball group, I believe a pickleball group, and we had some individuals offer dance and taekwondo. So I know that's, and there may have been more, but I think that's what was, at least in the recent.
And then preschool.
And, well, on the
And
preschool
community
days,
room.
and the community room.
Yeah, and yoga.
Yeah. So, regard to the new plan, great question. And it has a lot of, I think there's a lot of potential if we were able to move forward with this project. Because again, as you heard, Mike said, we have a great plan that has multi-use, and our intent is to create a facility that everyone in Normandy Park uses. I know we've heard feedback from residents, well, I've never used the rec center and I will never use it. And we hope to change that. We want ages from 2 to 102 to come to our Civic Center, whether it's to meet your neighbor for a coffee, come together for the weekly book club, come for an exercise class, play basketball with your friends. So the plan is getting a lot of potential. The plan, if we build the new project as planned, the preschool would definitely be back here at the building. We would stop renting space up at church on First Avenue. We'll have a rec center, a community room, a catering kitchen, and a new chamber that's going to be all multi-use. And we hope to do a variety of projects. What we're looking at is, we're very fortunate that we have just hired a new position. We have a Parks and Rec manager. I don't know if y'all have heard the news, but we have a new person that's really geared to building not only our parks, but our recreation and education opportunities. And Amy Lloyd, who some of you may know is a Normandy Park resident, is in that position. And what we're going to be focusing on at first is looking at creative and innovative programs. Because just to be honest, we do not have a substantial, if any, budget for programs, and we don't have a tremendous amount of staffing. But we have a lot of creativity, and we think we can work and partner and bring people in that will offer fun and exciting activities for residents, or even volunteer. You know, like we talk about, there's someone that loves yoga and I want to share that with everybody. So I'm going to teach free yoga every day out in the Great Lawn. So we have nothing in concrete, but we have a lot of ideas. But what we want to accomplish, and I think what we're all committed to, is a facility that is widely used almost the entire day for a variety of uses. So I think there's a lot of potential and a lot of great ideas and initiative, and I think we will be able to offer something for everybody. Even if it's like a gender reveal party, maybe your neighbor invites you to come to the great facility here, come hang around the fire pit and talk local politics and what you think about the new ordinance that the city council is considering. So again, there's just a lot of potential with this plan as proposed.
Can I add one specific function I forgot to mention? Aligned with the center of the basketball court, pickleball courts, is a flex room. We called it fitness and dance here, but it can open up and become a stage for performances out onto that floor. I forgot to mention that before. That's why it could also be in the 4,000. The gym gets.
What was the gym size before?
The current, or the current, yeah. The former current was about 3,200 square feet.
Which was considered an elementary school size.
Correct.
Right? And so.
So the
Mike,
thought
what's that?
process, I can expand on that. The thought process behind the 4,000 was we could get 2 pickleball courts in there. The thought process behind the 7,000 was we could get 3 pickleball courts in there. So those are kind of the two driving factors on the 4 and the 7. The 7,000 is a full high school gym. You could play full basketball, volleyball courts would fit inside the 7. The 4,000 kind of narrowed those things up to more like the middle school range.
Do you know the price difference in the 7,000 versus the 4,000?
Approximately $2 million.
I think it was smaller than that, based on the. Ken knows. He's usually always right, but I think with the latest. Okay, that's it.
Oh, you're right. It was more like 1.3.
Okay.
So there could be things like award ceremonies and, you know, small plays or musicals or singing, different music groups. There's a lot of people that have asked about music.
You know,
There's,
with all due respect, I've
that.
lived at that corner for 30 years when this gym was up and running and no one had fear of it collapsing on anybody. And it wasn't used that much.
Right.
It just wasn't. You know what was used? Was the outdoor spaces. It's always been that way. And that was before City Hall was here. It was before the police station was here. Everyone was always here on the outside and enjoying it. No one's ever really cried for a new big gym.
well, when we did the yellow tag number exercise, that's probably the most recent sort of litmus test that we have for just sort of putting it out there to the community, like, hey, people, what would you use, what would you want? And there were quite a few people that, I mean, that's why it ended up on as part of the plan, because in terms of just the
How many yellow
percentage
tags
of
were
answers.
returned? How many?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, because I never even heard of the project, and I've been here 56 years.
I didn't.
So, you talk about something you did throughout the community.
Oh, you went to one.
My mom's here, I'm here. We've never heard of it. So, how thorough was it? How much did you meet, go out and contact everybody? Did you get a small sampling that you were just happy with the results you got from the people you contacted? But, you know, my tax dollars at work here are based on, you keep going back to this yellow tag, and I've never heard of it. And it's on the ballot.
Yeah.
And I'm just now at this informational thing, and it's already posted on a ballot. So I'm really curious about, you know, this whole process, what it's based on.
Well, I'm gonna get a little sidetracked here, but thank you, because I was gonna bring this up.
I'm getting down to
You
that.
know, and I had this conversation with your neighbor, it's a challenge that local government has everywhere. This is not a Normandy Park issue, it's just a local government issue. And that communication, we want it to be two ways, and what we heard from you, we've heard from others on other issues. So what I would like to encourage you to do, is to make a plug, if you've all seen your latest City Scene magazine, we have a What's Happening campaign going on. We do a weekly email that would hit the yellow tag campaigns going on, the town hall meeting. Here's a summary of the council decisions. We try to make it quick and easy, but one thing I just want to say is please, you've got a QR code, or you can just go to the homepage of normandyparklaw.gov and please sign up for that email, because that will help keep that two-way communication going. Councilmember McAvoy.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, perhaps you could share with the audience how many years we've been talking about a town hall or a civic center, and all the committees, and where it should be sited here or should be sited up at First Avenue. It's been a multi-year project, and it's been pretty well vetted for a long time. Sometimes, I tuned into what the city's doing, but I've been involved for a number of years, and I think a lot of people have as well, and it's a chance to address alcohol.
No, and to your point, we kind of started off the conversation tonight about that. So in 2014, we had the facilities task force planning.
Correct.
Obviously, it was an issue to get to that stage in life prior to 2014. The Yellow Tag project, to your point, was in the City Scene magazine. It was posted on social media, on Nextdoor and Facebook. You know, it was on banners out front here in several places. So, I mean, I understand that it's frustrating when these things kind of spring up, but you know, there was concerted effort made for many, many years to get to this point.
And I guess that's why I just read the plug for that email, because again, we want you to, all the residents to be engaged and know, and I know the city council and staff, we welcome feedback because it helps us make better decisions. So, and that's why we wanted to kind of do the history to show that it has been an issue we've been working on. But we're glad you're here now. And so next question, Mike, I think this was.
One statement
yeah.
about the gym is that I coached for about 15 years.
And did a lot of gym workouts, even for baseball, not hitting, of course, but maybe wiffle ball. But, and we ended up going to other facilities just because the scale of that gym made it very difficult to make it function simply with 12 kids. It's like herding cats, but, and that was the complaint I heard by a number of people. God, we go down there, yeah, the price is right. It's just not that functional. So I'm not saying that, you know, a bigger gym is, we'll get more people. I mean, builders may will come. I don't know that. I just suspect the fact that we would go to junior high and high school gyms to do our workouts, and sometimes not even in the Highline School District. We were up, you know, in the city of Seattle, and had a fine space and place. And it was convenient to get here, and easy parking. It was just not that functional. And that goes the same thing with the sports field. I agree with the comment being made. Most people are outside. Yeah, we can't wait to get outside after a long, wet winter, right? And so I agree to that part of it, but maybe that makes it a little more year-round function. I don't know that. I just go from...
And I think we heard a lot of that same sentiment over the years, and that's why we increased that gym size. You know, and it's not massively, you know, increased, but that 3,200 to 4,000, we really thought that was kind of the sweet spot to get it a lot more functional for those basketball practices and those things that you're talking about. And obviously the dream is the 7,000 so that we can get all those things happening there on a regular basis, but that obviously is a budgetary issue that we're trying to balance.
Yeah.
Mike, I think this was directed, hoping to get your input. How has bicycle infrastructure been integrated into this project? There is plenty of parking available, but it would be cool if Normandy Park is more bike forward and safety conscious.
Well, we've reinforced the loop trail around the play fields, and then we're contemplating a lot of bike parking up in the front near the parking turnaround, and also up near the police entrance. But we're at early development stage. Every single bike parking location isn't exactly drawn up yet, but we completely think this should be maxed out on bike infrastructure to encourage more people to come by bike if they can.
The next question focuses on the preschool. Why are we planning to have space for the preschool when it accommodates so few Normandy Park residents? In a prior meeting regarding preschool, most of the students were from outside of Normandy Park. They do not have any onus with their property taxes. What percentage of city halls actually have preschools? To answer that direct question, I would say very few. I would say that we may be, I think we're unique in that, but I will say the City Council has definitely expressed their support of the preschool program and to continue that preschool program. So we are committed to building a facility to house that program. I think it's been in place for over 20 years, and the City Council wants to continue to have that program available.
It's my question, and I know it's a feel-good thing about having the preschool, but it's a bigger expense on the plan to have it done. It's going to cost more for a few people, and I know you want to feel good about it on City Council. However, the buck stops where we can afford. And if we can't afford it, I never vote anything down, but I'm ready to vote this down.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we were trying to do to kind of go along with the I call it the multi-use function of it. I think, Mike, what we had talked about is when we get to design as creating it where somehow it can be somewhat secured or opened up for other programs outside of the preschool area or the preschool hours. And do you remember that conversation? I don't think I'm making that up. And if you don't, that's okay.
Well, yeah.
We pay for wages out of our city budget for the preschool teacher. That's what was happening before.
Yeah.
So why should my wages be going for just a few? and our taxes.
So, and I
Understand.
can, yeah, I mean, I can just at least offer, again, this is the city's presentation tonight, it's
I
not
know,
the
I know,
council's
but I-
presentation. But I just thought it's worth it to at least throw it out there that there are talks of having many, that the education is a value of Normandy Park. And so looking at ways that we can impart educational experiences from the earliest age all the way through, I think that's kind of why it keeps, you know, being a part of this kind of program, is that people want to say that we value education. But I think there's definitely some talk about possibilities for like a outdoor preschool as well as indoor preschool, maybe a Montessori style to offer some variety, or some, and using that preschool space in the evenings for other kinds of things, so that when there's an event in, on the Great Lawn or in the gymnasium or something, we could maybe have some kind of services happening for younger age children that can happen at the exact same time. So in other words, people could come for a Heart of the Park gala and their kids could be playing in the gym or in the kind of a multi-use kid space.
So Mike,
Some of the ideas.
the preschool would also be essentially a multi-purpose area?
Yeah, at the concept stage, we thought, we haven't designed all the furniture yet, but that furnishings would be built in and lockable at the edge, all the kind of hard built-in stuff, and all the tables and chairs would be able to be moved into a storage room, so you could clear it out.
Separate, standalone, only used by those few, at a few hours. It would also be a multi-use area.
It definitely could be designed that way. If we put a big storage wall where everything was lockable on one side and the staff was able to put everything away every single day, the room could be designed that way.
Well, you have a $25 million project here, which is, in my opinion, quite high. I don't know how many other people feel that, but for a community of 6,700 households, that's a lot of money. So we have to get down to the numbers here. We're really not getting any numbers, we're getting sweeping numbers, but we don't really have any numbers. You're talking about 25% of the population here is 65 years and older. They have a very difficult time paying these taxes, particularly when the housing prices have gone up so high. They've been in their houses for many, many years, and they're struggling now to pay their taxes, and you're adding another $350 to $500 a year on top of that. So I don't understand a lot of that. And the second question is, you have this $5 million down for these private donations. How much of that have you collected so far about committee?
Yeah, that's part.
My question. My question is right.
We
that same
have,
question there.
while nothing has, no paperwork has been signed, we have probably approximately 5% of the 5 million secured. We have a couple of leads. And like I mentioned earlier, the committee has developed a plan and have identified people that might be able to be a little supportive, extra supportive. And they're going to be working on that very soon. They've already started working on it, but we
That's only
continue their work. And
$250,000.
the point of why we're doing the timing is, and this came from one of the residents who thought that we could get some support, help getting support of, is it's going to be a great impact if the bond passes. Then it shows that the community wants this project and we want their help, you know, the individuals' help now and making it a reality.
Again, that's only $250,000 out of $5 million. It's a very small amount. And you're hoping on the bond type project passes that people will be pouring money into it. That's a big hope.
I agree, but again, I'll just one more thing, and Tom, and we still have a few more questions I want to really get to, and it's 8:30. But again, till the funding is secure, nothing will be committed to. There will be no levy on your taxes. You won't be spending any money till we get the funding secure and get ready to move forward.
Again, addressing the 65-year population that's over there, how are you explaining to them if this bond measure passes, how they pay their additional taxes? That's a tough thing.
It is
for
a
lot of
tough
people.
question, and that's why I think the council's decision in doing this is the right decision. Because it now puts the decision of this into the residents' hands. And you can vote to approve or reject it. And the one thing that we did put in the bond, and is there is for the seniors, there are some programs that can give them some assistance if they do qualify, that this levy would not be put on their tax bill. But again, those standards are quite strenuous, but there is a program for those that meet that criteria.
And the phone number,
Well,
the
my-
phone number for the program is in the actual proposal.
Yes.
Too.
Pick Mike's brain a little, if I may. You mentioned early on that this time of your projects are some of the most emotional and difficult. And your experience with getting financing together or seeing financing go together, have you ever experienced working on a government-owned building where 20% of the financing came from donations? That seems incredible to me. It just seems like that hasn't happened before, but Normandy Park has wishful thinking that it will. Have you seen?
The closest example, I don't know the percentage, but on Del Mar there was a significant amount that was donated by private citizens and private groups, but I don't know the percentage.
Del Mar is a much more affluent community than Normandy Park.
Thank you for your answer.
All right, so let's try to get through these last questions. Who is going to be allowed to use the preschools? I think we've hit that. As pointed out, anybody that has children of age can sign up. You do not have to be a Normandy Park resident to participate in the preschool program, but we are hoping to be creative in our design and let it have a multi-function where other programs can be offered at other times when school's not in session. What about the impact of added traffic with your multi-use facility? I think, Mike, you kind of hit on the parking where with the new plan that we're proposing that we will be increasing our parking. And of course, walkability and biking is something we highly encourage for residents of Normandy Park, that hopefully with our new design and the constant use of City Hall, or the Civic Center, I should say, that we'll be able to address it.
So you said outside Normandy Park could come in. So public meaning those outside of Normandy Park can come in and use the facility and use the preschool and.
They do. They do now.
Yeah. So the preschool program, I mean, you're gonna have, just like any school, will be a drop off and pick up. So you will have some traffic influx during that time. And we are a government building open to the public. So yes, other residents from our neighbors or anywhere can come and take advantage of the programs and facilities that we offer.
We were talking about creating this space where we can have all these grand parties and everything, which we don't have now, so you're just inviting everybody in. And that's going to impact traffic in my neighborhood. I'm on one of the main thoroughfares that comes into the park. And I don't really want my tax dollars creating more traffic down the street.
I agree.
There's enough people that speed through here and disregard everything from outside. And, you know, I'm just not for how much bigger square footage from what you've had operating in for how many years, what percentage bigger is this new proposal?
It's approximately 6,000 square foot bigger. The footprint is basically the same. We've just adjusted the sizes, like the basketball, the indoor gymnasium is bigger. The preschool is bigger.
Office space.
Office
Police
space
department.
is slightly bigger, not much. We've limited that because we know that the growth of Normandy Park is extremely limited, so we do not see a big influx in staffing in the future. So there's some improved efficiencies, a little bit additional space for some things, but not significant. So it's basically the same footprint, just adjusted. I think the only area that wasn't increased was the community room. It was about the same size, if not reduced a little bit, because we fought with the flow opportunities that Mike has created, that we could still serve everybody with that same size, if not slightly smaller. So I think we're down. Last question, timing and cost overruns. How will this be handled? Great question. What we are going to do with Miller Hall regarding cost, we will definitely, we've done it, we're gonna continue keeping our pulse on the estimated cost of doing this project. One of the things that we've talked about in-house is if the bond is approved, and we know we've basically got the green light from residents, moving forward, we wanna look at getting the design going, but very early, if not even before the design starts, go back with Miller Hull and JMB Consultants and do a new updated cost estimate. Just to have that clear understanding that we know what it's gonna cost and that we're still within budget. If we're not, then that information can be presented to council and they can try to decide what direction they wanna do. Timing, I think we've heard a little bit about it. Again, timing is critical just because of the time that we're living in. If we had started this project a year ago, even more, we definitely would have a lot less costs and more, I think, more beneficial rates when it comes to financing. So again, timing is important to get it going. And once it gets going, we're going to keep it on track because we understand how important it is to the community and the support that will be shown to make this reality. We're going to make it a success and keep going. And I think we've got a great team between our staff and working with Miller Hull. I think we're going to have a great team to keep it moving forward in a great positive manner. And the last question, Tom, I think we answered your question?
Yes.
Okay.
You did, thank you.
And then Daryl, I think, did we,
Well, you tried to, but.
okay, because it was what is your bond ratio? And what is the interest rate, which I know Brenda talked a little bit about. And then the private funds that we have committed, we've talked about that too. So I know we're a little bit over 8:30. Did I get everybody's questions? I think I've gone through all the green cards and didn't miss anything.
I didn't get read. There's a couple in the podium. I thought a couple were thrown in the podium.
I think they were right there. I grabbed them.
I saw the two that were right there.
No?
Okay.